Police duty in summer. It was a really hot summer night in the small town of Cedarville. Detective Luna Mitchell was in the police station, drinking iced coffee in the dim light. She had no idea that something big was about to happen. At 3:45 a.m., the police radio started buzzing with reports of cars being damaged at an apartment complex on Oak Street. Luna felt a surge of energy as she quickly grabbed her badge and headed to the scene. The night was supposed to be calm, but now it was filled with confusion and trouble. When Luna got to the place, she saw a lot of wrecked cars with broken glass glinting in the moonlight. It bothered her because this destruction wasn't just about money. It messed up the lives of regular folks just trying to get by. Detective Michael Turner, Luna's partner, showed up too. They started gathering proof, taking pictures, and talking to upset car owners. The damage was bad, and people in the town were getting more and more frustrated. The summer that was supposed to be calm was turning into a time of trouble. As the sun came up, Luna and Michael listened to what witnesses had to say. They thought maybe 4 or 5 people were behind all this. The people of the town were already nervous and now had to deal with a scary truth, a bunch of lawlessness that didn't seem to be stopping. While Luna was at the scene, her phone rang, and it was Jake Thompson, the local MLA. He was worried about the growing crime and said families were thinking about leaving Cedarville for good. The once peaceful summer now felt scary, and the people felt like they couldn't do anything about it. But the police weren't giving up. Detective Senior Sergeant Rachel Williams took charge and promised to catch the people behind all the destruction. The hot summer weather matched the growing tension in Cedarville. As Luna and Michael investigated, they found something troubling. People were leaving their cars unlocked to avoid having their windows broken. It was a shocking sign of how bad things had gotten in Cedarville, a town that used to be calm but was now dealing with a lot more crime. Back at the police station, everyone was busy. Officers watched footage from the apartment complex cameras, hoping to see the people behind the car damage. The flickering images hinted at shadowy figures causing all the trouble. The summer heat made everything feel more urgent, just like the investigation. In the middle of all this chaos, the police got news of 4 robberies in the Bradling area in the last 24 hours. The crimes were spreading fast, like wildfire in the town. 2 of them were still happening, showing that the criminals were being bold. Luna and Michael rushed to the Bradling area with their sirens blaring through the quiet summer night. The streets were empty, but there was a tense feeling in the air. The cozy small-town feeling that used to be in Cedarville seemed to be disappearing under the hot, heavy summer. The first robbery happened at a small convenience store. It looked like the thieves left in a hurry, taking money from the registers and leaving things scattered on the floor. The word summer, which used to bring thoughts of warmth and joy, now made Luna think of crime and sadness. The second incident, reported at 8:15 p.m., had just happened. Luna and Michael checked out the scene, trying hard to figure out what was going on. The once peaceful town was now overshadowed by the dark events of the summer. Back at the police station, the investigation got more serious. Luna studied maps, trying to find any patterns in the crimes. The summer nights had turned into a fight between the police and those trying to take advantage of a town in chaos. The search for justice went on all day, with officers working hard under the hot summer sun. As the temperature went up, so did the police's determination. They looked into every lead, making sure nothing was left unexplored. Motivated by duty, they swiftly mobilized a strategic operation, strategically closing in on the criminals. One day, the police found out where the thief was hiding in a quiet and rarely visited place. As they went into the peaceful and empty area, they unexpectedly discovered a secret meeting of the thieves. The police quickly and quietly approached the criminals, who were deeply engaged in conversation. Because the thieves weren't expecting it, the police successfully captured the entire gang. In this deserted location where hardly anyone went, justice won, and the once hidden meeting place became the downfall of the infamous thieves. The town, tired from the summer of crime, felt relief knowing that law enforcement was taking decisive action. When the handcuffs clicked on the suspect, the summer sun was going down, casting a warm light on Cedarville. The town, once troubled, now stood together, thankful for the hard work of those who brought peace back to their streets. The team of police also felt proud of themselves and promised to continue their hardship. The robbers were caught and admitted to damaging cars and engaging in criminal activities. They faced legal consequences for their actions, receiving punishment according to the law. The admission of guilt ensured justice prevailed, holding the individuals accountable for their crimes. This resolution provided relief to the victims and contributed to the safety of the community. Afterward, the community joined forces to rebuild and heal. The scars from the summer of crime would stick around, but Cedarville became stronger, tougher, and committed to keeping the peace that had defined the town for a long time. The summer, which had begun with a lot of trouble, ended with everyone feeling more united. The police, working under the hot sun and through the long summer nights, had won. Cedarville could look forward to the season with hope and positivity, knowing that its protectors were always ready to keep them safe.
Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so.
Murder of the pizza guy. Okay, so what do we have? Senior Detective Luther entered the room and asked, "I guess he'll be in charge of this from now on. Sir, we know the victim's name is Adam Carl. He was 25 years old and he was just working with the newly opened Yum Pizza store. He was a delivery guy. The day he was murdered, he was returning from a delivery, but unfortunately, he was murdered on his way when the street surveillance camera was already broken. At the moment, there's no strong suspect in our hands. I gave him the file while telling him the basic details of the case. My name is Marcus Neon. I'm a 28-year-old detective in North Carolina. The case we're working on is currently the most complex one because the boy who was murdered lived alone with his little brother. No family connection has been found, so it's harder to find suspects with motives to murder him. His criminal records are clean and he never once got into a fight with anyone. So the case is going to take a little bit more time before getting completely solved. The local police gave our department this case because it's getting the eye of everyone. Medias everywhere are trying to connect this case with several other theories, but in reality, it's not as easy as it looks. I've been pulling all-nighters in a row from the day that I got this case. In this case, it's like a mystery because whoever the culprit is, he thought of every possible move in advance before committing the crime. It's been more than a week since we found the body. There were stab marks on his body, but no weapons were found at the crime scene. The body was immediately sent for autopsy and the results were in just a day before yesterday. According to the results, the cause of his death was strangling by rope and his body was stabbed after he died. Detective Neon, what do you think of this case? You have been working on it from the start, right? After reading the file carefully, Senior Detective Luther turned his head towards me and asked, I've concluded that the culprit planned all of this, which means that the pizza delivery must also have been included in this. So the culprit can be someone who's already working in the pizza place, or it must be someone who's one of his regulars. It's either a grudge or jealousy. These were the only possibilities I'd come up with yet. Don't you think it's related to love? Did he not have a girlfriend? He asked in a calm tone, as if he was trying to process and deduct the possibilities of the murder. Yes, Portia Nina was the name of his girlfriend. She was a fellow worker in the store. She got another job offer, so she resigned, but I don't think she's related to his murder in any possible way. They broke up about a month ago before his death, and they were on pretty good terms even after the breakup. I picked up another file that had all this information while telling him this. What about her now? Is she seeing someone? He took the file from my hand and asked while keeping his focus on the file. No, she denied being involved with someone during the questioning. He looked up as I said that. And you believe that? How long has it been since you started working as a detective, Mr. Neon? 2 years, sir. I hesitated at his question at first, but then responded in a loud, respectful tone. Detective Neon, by this time, you may have realized that we don't believe anything until we have proof. Now put someone on the trail of Miss Nina. I think she's somehow related to this murder. He exited the room after saying that, and his suspicion of Nina made me confused. I picked up my phone and gave a call to Anthony, asking him to trail Nina's every move. After that, I picked up the file again and started going through it. According to Adam's coworkers, he came to work on time as usual. He went for his first delivery at around 10:15 a.m. and he returned on time. His day was pretty much normal. He delivered pizza and looked happy when he received a nice amount of tips. At around 6:38 p.m., he went on his last delivery, just before he was murdered. The customer was one of the regulars. She normally used to put on a special request and ask for Marcus to deliver her pizza. At first, she was on my suspect list, but after questioning her, I removed her from that. She was just a single mother of newly born twins, so I don't think she had the motive or energy for the crime. As I was reading the file to find another clue, I received a call from Anthony. Sir, I was tailing Nina. I saw her with a man. They looked like they were arguing. What Anthony was saying shocked me because Nina told me that she was not involved with any men. I think the senior must be right about Nina's involvement in the crime. You took pictures, right? I asked Anthony. Yes, sir, sharing them right away. As he said that, a notification bell rang and I received the pictures. Checked the database for the man to see if he had any past criminal records, and I got it. His name was Carl Harris, and he was previously a suspect in the murder of a middle-aged man 2 years ago. At the time, he was involved with his wife, but soon after his suspicion, the wife also committed suicide. She had written a suicide note that matched her handwriting in which she confessed to murdering her husband because he was abusive towards her. That case was closed after that, and Carl was removed from being a suspect. He was also in for harassing women multiple times. I called Nina in for questioning and started to ask her questions related to Carl. Her expressions were surprisingly calm, as if she knew this was coming. Were you involved in Adam's murder along with Carl? I asked her. No, I've told you multiple times that I'm not involved in his murder, she said in an annoyed tone. Okay, maybe you're not, but you're not denying Carl's involved either. Nina, do you know something? As the senior said that, I could notice the nervousness on Nina's face, as if she wanted to hide something. You know, we have enough proof to put you in for murder of Adam if you try to hide something. Either this, or you'll end up committing suicide like the previous woman Carl framed. I only said this to scare Nina, and it worked. She started to cry. She told us that Carl suddenly showed up out of nowhere and started to harass her, saying he wanted to date her. But when she rejected him, saying that she was still in love with Adam, just to get him off her back, he disappeared for a week. Nina thought he finally backed down, but one day, she suddenly got the news that Adam was murdered. Carl came back the day after Adam's murder and continued to harass her. She told us that she only suspected that Carl killed Adam, but she never got any proof that Carl ever said anything about it. We dispatched a team to bring Carl in for questioning, and another team was dispatched to search Carl's apartment and car for evidence. The rope and the knife were found in his bedroom closet, and it was sent into the forensics lab. While questioning Carl, he was silent the entire time and did not tell us anything. The senior detective got a warrant to put him in under arrest because he was convinced that Carl is the culprit. A week later, the forensics results were in, and Adam's DNA along with Carl's fingerprints were found on the weapons. After that, he was officially arrested for killing Adam, but he still hasn't revealed how he killed him, or even what happened on the day when Adam was returning after his last delivery. One thing is for sure, my respect for Senior Detective Luther has increased because he was right all along, and I guess I'm going to reopen the case of that middle-aged man because I don't think his wife killed him, or that the wife committed suicide either.
In December of last year, I realized that because of a promotion I'd received during the summer, I was able to afford a new apartment. My old apartment had a bunch of chronic problems with it, and half of them were the kind of thing that I might have picked up on should I have given it a proper inspection beforehand. So when it came to shopping around for a new place, I was beyond thorough when it came to the kind of research I put in. After I admitted to asking an estate agent how thick the apartment door was, a friend of mine would kind of get on my case and say no landlord is ever going to offer you a tenancy. And in a way, he was right. But I found my approach only put off the dodgy landlords, while the decent ones completely understood why I was asking so many questions. Which is why when I actually found somewhere I liked, it made the experience way more stressful than exciting. I was competing with over 100 other applicants for the tenancy. It was these huge western-facing windows on the second floor too, meaning you get some incredible sunsets along with great spots for houseplants. And the shower, oh my god, the shower. Built-in waterproof Bluetooth speakers, stream jets, UV lights to stop bacteria from going anywhere. Okay, I'll quit flexing about my shower. And spoilers, I got the flat. But it's not like it gives me much joy anymore anyway. None of those amenities do anymore. And the only thing I put myself paying any serious attention to is the living room ceiling. Weird picture, isn't it? A guy just sitting there, drinking coffee, eating dinner, eyes glued to the black-white plaster above him. And I catch myself doing it an awful lot. A disturbing amount, actually. And now, I'll tell you why. Like I said, everything about this flat seemed perfect, and for the most part it was. But literally 8 days after I move in, right while I'm sitting quite confidently that everything was in working order, stuff hits the fan. I'm sitting on the couch watching TV, and the rain is just pelting against the windows. This horrible, cold December rain, the kind that makes it a kind of thrill hearing pattering against the glass. So I'm just chilling when I hear this tapping sound coming from down the hallway. I don't really think anything of it at first, like it honestly sounded like someone in the hallway outside the flat. But after a while, I decide to investigate because the sound just isn't ceasing. As I walk into the hall, I can tell almost right away that the tapping sound is coming from my bathroom, and when I open the door, I'm faced with this steady leak coming from the air vent in the ceiling. Just 8 days in. 8 freaking days, and I have a leak. Yes, it's only a minor one, but as anyone who's dealt with leaking pipes or dodgy plumbing might tell you, even the slightest amount of water can be absolutely catastrophic if a leak isn't dealt with right away. The water might pool somewhere out of reach, rotting wood and causing that disgusting stagnant water smell. It can be a massive pain. So I'm kind of panicking, looking up the names of local plumbers, cursing the landlady's name all the while for not telling me if there were leaky pipes. It had been raining all day, so it could have easily been something to do with all the rain, but I had an entire 3rd floor above me. How was the roof drainage merging with the vents? And that's when I had my big brain, or not so big brain moment, and realized that it might well be coming from the flat upstairs. Maybe they left the bath running or something. I remember thinking it was annoying, but accidents happen. I run upstairs, knock on the door of the unit directly above me, but get nowhere. Then, making sure no one's around to watch me, I kneel down and put my ear to the keyhole. Decently enough, but try explaining that to some stranger with no context. I expected to maybe hear some running water, maybe even the sound of someone mopping up the overflowed bathwater. But nothing. It's just silence on the other side. Given that I can hardly go kicking the door in, I just go back to my flat, whack a mop bucket under the leak, then get on the phone with the landlady in case she had a plumber on retainer or something. Being the nice lady that she is, my landlady calls me back within minutes to let me know a plumber is on his way. But given that he was already at a job, I'd have to wait about an hour. No big drama. It was a manageable leak, for the time being anyway, but we'd still have to gain entry into the flat upstairs to make sure if it was the source of the whole thing. So I take it upon myself to walk back upstairs every so often to check if someone had returned home. At least, I presume they were out. There was no reason why they wouldn't just answer the door, right? I checked the first time. Then the second was maybe 50 minutes later. Then the third was just shy of 9 at night, like 20:57 on the dot. I remember because it was 15 minutes before the plumber was due to arrive, and I checked the clock just before making one final trip upstairs to check if the neighbors were home. Only when I get to the front door of the flat, which I'm 100% certain had been closed for the previous 2 calls, I can see that it's ever so slightly ajar. I'm certain someone is home by that point, so out of pure politeness, I get to the door a few loud knocks before shouting like, "Hello?" Expecting someone to appear any second, but again, there's no reply. But that time, I can definitely hear the sound of dripping water inside the apartment. So I go ahead and push the door open, seeing that almost the entire carpet is soaking wet. The flat is laid out exactly like mine, so I know the first room I'm going to encounter is the bathroom. The linoleum floor is flooded, the sink is flooded, but the taps are off. There's just a steady drip, drip, drip from one of them, like it hadn't been turned off all the way. When I call out to see if anyone's home, kind of worried I might be seen as rude for just sort of barging in. Yet I'm greeted by complete silence, just the sound of my own trainer squishing on the sodden carpet as I'm walking through the flat. If you're imagining this as being somewhat of a creepy scene, you'd be dead right. The closer I got to the living room, the more I realized that something might be terribly wrong there. And what do you know? There was. I think I knew she was dead from the moment I laid eyes on her. It was the awkward way she was lying there on the soaking wet floor with her eyelids kind of half closed. It's hard to describe, but I've never seen a person look like that. Like she was frozen in mid-blink or something. I just knew, you know? Like the gut reaction was so intense that I simply didn't need to check the girl's pulse. I didn't need to call out for her to wake up. I mean, I did just in case. Part of that gut reaction to death was wanting her to wake up. Pretty purely selfish reasons too, so I'd stop freaking out. But it was no good. She was gone. So I called 999. I tried some CPR and chest compressions as best as I could manage, but nothing would rouse her. It was the single most traumatic experience of my life, just splashing around in the half-flooded flat, begging the poor girl to wake up. All before the moment, I finally just sat on my butt and accepted that she was dead and there was nothing more I could do. I never cried like that before. I'm not ashamed to admit it, and I stayed sat there like that until I saw blue flashing lights in the window. At first, the police were brilliant. They came in my flat with me, made a note of the leak, telling me it was going to be okay and that I did everything right. I just sat there nursing a cup of tea and telling them everything exactly as it happened. I remember touching on the whole fact that the door seemed to have spontaneously opened, meaning that at some point in the time between 2035 and 2057, either the victim or her killer had opened the flat's door for whatever reason. The 2 policemen shot each other this look that I misinterpreted as like an oof moment in retrospect. I think that was a sign of things to come. They definitely started by treating me like I was the poor innocent member of the public who happened to have stumbled across the tragic death of a young woman. But it didn't take long before they changed their attitude entirely. I got a call from a policeman calling himself D.I. Walker, who politely invited me to the local police station for further questioning. He assured me I wasn't in any trouble. They just wanted to go over a few details with me in light of new evidence that had emerged. It was an informal chat, no need for a solicitor or anything serious like that. So me being an absolute tool, I volunteered to talk to 2 murder police in an interview room with no one else present. They kept up the good cop routine for a while, going over my statement with me while buttering me up for trying the CPR. But a distinct change of tone came when one of the CID blokes asked me if I'd ever been up to the girl's apartment before the night in question. I told them now that I'd only been there for just over a week when the leak started, and as much as it makes me sound like a bit of a jerk, I'm just not the kind of guy to greet new neighbors with a freaking muffin basket or whatever. Then bizarrely, their follow-up question was if I knew anything about electricals, like if I've ever worked as an electrician or repaired appliances for a living. Again, I told them now, but it was my turn to ask a question. Mainly, why they asked me such an unexpected question. That's when they hit me with the fact that I was basically their number 1 suspect, and the way the guy said it was honestly horrific. Look, mate, the thing is, we've come up against a bit of a brick wall here, and we're hoping you can help us out. We started off all friendly like we were old pals or something. You've given a brilliant statement here, and we're really grateful for you going into such detail and giving up your spare time. There's just one big problem. You said you knocked on the flat about 3 times between 8 and 9 o'clock. I wanted about 20 till and once just before 9. We got the time of death as being 8:45 at the very latest. So you're saying you didn't hear anything when you knocked the second time. Well, something is going on in the flat that causes the girl's death. I find that very confusing, don't you? I remember every word that he said, and I knew it wasn't even meant to be accusatory. I don't think, not overtly anyway, but I knew what they were getting at. They had to eliminate me as a suspect, but unfortunately for me, that was much easier said than done, because my fingerprints were everywhere, my clothes fibers were everywhere, and there wasn't a single witness of anyone else having visited that girl's flat that day. No one but me, by my own admission. It started to become obvious that the police actually had a suspect in mind, and it was me. Although I was never actually arrested and the weeks had followed, I had my flat searched twice, and police were almost constantly hanging around the building both flats were in. I noticed that they seemed to take particular interest in the building's wiring, and once or twice they seemed to be accompanied by some kind of tradesman, I'm guessing an electrician. And that's about the time I pieced together that the police thought the girl had died in some kind of freak electrical accident. Maybe a current had run through the flooding and just zapped it right there. But wouldn't that mean that I'd get electrocuted too? But that's just it. Despite the police refusing to tell me much about the investigation, I'm pretty sure they theorized that I'd somehow killed the girl using a jolt of electricity, which in my book showed how stumped they were for a legit theory. Don't get me wrong, the prospect of being the main suspect in the murder, getting a wrongful conviction or something, that's a terrifying thing for sure. But like I mentioned, I was never arrested, and after a while, the whole thing just went away. Naturally, I wanted to know everything the police knew concerning my neighbor's death. But after basically being accused of murder by one of them at one point, I wasn't all that keen on drawing any more attention to myself. What's clear is that I was just meters away from a murder I had no idea was happening, and that I'd only just missed whoever the killer was when they slipped out of the apartment and left the door open. But why would they leave the door open? I couldn't have known that there was a leak, so why not just close the door and roll out the possibility of someone stumbling across the murder scene? And what was the point of flooding the flat in the first place? It wasn't just the bathroom sink. The kitchen sink was overflowing too, but why? On top of that, I don't get the whole electrocution angle either. It seems like such an elaborate way to kill someone, flooding the apartment and then running a strong enough current through the water. And how would a person go about doing that remotely? Because they'd have to. Otherwise, they'd be killed too. Which leads me back to the question of who opened the door then? Was it some elaborate way of taking her own life and she wanted someone to find her before she went rotten? Too many questions. So are you all starting to understand why I spent an awful lot of time just staring at my ceiling? Now I can't seem to shake all the questions that have arisen since I moved in here. And what's worse, I'm kind of stuck here. Yeah, it's a nice place, but Jesus, it's tainted now. And it's going to take a long time before I'm going to feel normal again here. It's not like I have the money for a new deposit, and finding a place I actually like is tough going. And that's the gist of it, I suppose. I've been living under what feels like a tomb, and the mysteries of my neighbor's death have been keeping me up at night for freaking months now. I'd been very interested to hear other people's theories on this because, much like the police seem to be, I'm completely flummoxed as to what the explanation is. I mean, it's probably something perfectly rational, something tedious but tragic. But then again, sometimes my imagination starts taking over, and I start thinking that something entirely more sinister is to blame.
I have reactive attachment disorder, as a result, I struggle with severe depression. However, I don't take any medication. I say that because I was going through one of the worst bouts of depression I had suffered in a year and a half. And I wasn't hallucinating because of the medication. It was Tuesday night, or Wednesday morning, October 13th to 14th. I had cried myself to sleep like I had done for however many hours before. When I woke up, it was 3:34 a.m. My cat Betty was walking around on the bed, and for some reason, my alarm on my phone was going off. I used the Sleep Cycle app, and the alarm was going off even though I had set it for 5:30 to 6 a.m. So I am frustrated that it decided to stop working correctly. Then, I hear that my computer in the living room turns on. I thought that my other cat Vader must have knocked the mouse while wailing over the desk. Then I see the light turn on from the monitor. What? I thought. I was kind of pissed, so I started grumbling about the cats walking around, alarms going off unreasonably, and Vader knocking things about. Until I turned on the bedside lamp and saw both cats are lying at the end of my bed. Looking into my living room, I froze. I was so confused. I was trying to make sense of it when I heard my main door open, like the screen door first, then the front doorknob. Then I heard someone move across the carpet. Unlike the movies, I jumped out of bed as quietly as possible, wondering how the hell was someone entering my apartment, as I sure as hell locked the front door to the apartment. I silently stepped into the hall and peeked around the corner. My cats nonchalantly decided to ignore the obvious home invader, thief, or murderer that had entered our home. I looked around the corner, and the door was closed. The lights were off, the monitor was off, but I could hear the computer running. I stood there frozen and listened for any noise for God knows how long, but I could not make sense of it at all and couldn't sleep the whole night. It wasn't a dream. Maybe I was sleepwalking. I don't know. But I have never been afraid of my apartment, and at that very moment, I felt very afraid. Very much alone. It hasn't happened again. Or maybe it has. I just don't know.